guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the ninth episode of my series where I grab an album from my collection, talk about why I love it, what impact it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So, in my attempt to show all corners of hip-hop, I thought it would be fitting to make one of the first 10 albums I talk about the most celebrated and beloved instrumental album in the genre by a pretty wide margin. There's a wide array of instrumental albums in hip hop worth talking about. Just a few of my favorites would be HUD Dreams by Knowledge, Model Soul by Nujabes, and of course, Introducing by DJ Shadow. And those are just a few of the ones I have on vinyl, but there's also a couple that I love that I haven't grabbed yet on vinyl, like Since I Left You by the Avalanches and Dead Ringer by RJD2. There's also plenty of instrumental albums that sort of border on the edge of hip hop without really being considered hip hop albums, like Cosmogramma by Flying Lotus and Untrue by Burial. But while all of those albums are well worth your listening time, it would be hard to stack any of them up against Donuts when it comes to impact and influence. While Introducing by DJ Shadow was definitely a game-changing album and it was way ahead of its time. That album is sprawling and full of long twisting sections that sway from genre to genre. Donuts is a lot more tight and compact. The songs are for the most part shorter than an average song, which makes Donuts almost feel like a collection of amazing snippets, or as I've heard someone else put it before, the group of tracks could be likened to a box of mixed donuts where you're kind of reaching in and, trying a little bit of this one, trying a little bit of that one, and getting different flavors, different genres. But while I think that's a fun way of looking at it, and for all I know, maybe that was intended, the real meaning to my knowledge and the connection of the donut in relation to the album is like the album, it's a loop. The first song is titled Outro, and the final song is titled Welcome to the Show, and the reincorporation of the opening beat on the final song lends the album to be played in a perfect loop over and over. The reason this concept has meant so much to Dilla fans and this album is because if you didn't know, Jay Dilla passed away in 2006, and he actually made the vast majority of donuts on his deathbed. When you know this context and then go back and listen to a song like Don't Cry, where he takes the line, I can't stand to see you cry, and turns it into this masterpiece of a dedication to his mother, who would famously massage his fingertips when he was in the hospital so he could continue working on his MPC, that alone would make the song touching, but he basically pioneered the technique of micro-chopping for this song and ended up producing one of, if not the single best sample flips in hip-hop. I think I should take this time to give a little bit more background on Dilla for people that may not be too familiar with him, or maybe only have heard of him for the Donuts album. Jay Dilla was a prominent producer as well as MC from Detroit, Michigan, who really started honing his craft in the 90s. He was a key member of the group Slum Village along with T3 and later Elzai, and his soulful drums that often weren't quantized birthed this more human and mistake-prone style in hip-hop. By mistake, I mean opposed to just copy and pasting a set of hi-hats in Logic or Fruity Loops, where the average producer will quantize it so every single drum hit and hi-hat is exactly on tempo every time. By actually sitting down and banging out the drums by hand and opting not to quantize, Dilla coined an unmistakable style that gave his beats a distinct character. He really got his big chance in 1994 when his friend who had initially showed him the MPC introduced him to Q-Tip, who Dilla then gave his beat tape. Of course, when Tip put on that tape, he had his mind blown, and Dilla would start doing a lot of remixes for notable artists, though his name would often go uncredited at this time. While the stuff he would do with Slum Village would showcase his distinct style as well as his ability as an MC, the sound on those albums is a bit more rigid and funky. There's still spots of that on Donuts, but the group of genres he pulls from here is bigger than ever, incorporating soul, R&B, hip-hop, classical, rock, even elements of tribal music at times. While even outside of the Slum Village stuff, Jay Dilla still has a very wide-ranging discography of great albums that feature him rapping, like his collaboration album with Madlib and Rough Draft, a personal favorite of mine. Donuts is definitely the mad villainy of his discography, so to speak. Speaking of Madlib, when it comes to legendary producers that are still alive, he's probably as close to Dilla as we get, though that isn't to say he doesn't have his own completely distinct and influential style on his own. Dilla has also done a myriad of iconic beats for other artists. Some of these would include The Pharcyde, The Roots, MF Doom, Common, De La Soul, A Tribe Called Quest, and Erykah Badu. One super creative moment comes on a personal standout for me, which is the song People. Here, Dilla messes with the sample in a way you virtually never hear, where he's speeding and slowing it down and having the BPM change throughout the song. The ear he has for pulling reference material from completely different genres is almost unparalleled, and the way he mixes and matches them into a new context is something few beatmakers can do. Another method in the long list of innovative techniques developed by Dilla is how he would rearrange and manipulate lines from whatever he's sampling, allowing him to trick the listener into hearing a phrase or word that wasn't actually intended in the original. One of those moments that comes to mind is on the song Waves, that's kind of dedicated to his brother, where he changes the line Johnny don't do it and makes it sound like Johnny do it, completely changing the context of the original. By taking bits and pieces from different source material, JD winds up with a masterpiece of loops and chops that literally could not be achieved without sampling. This is one of those classics that literally never gets old. I think I enjoy it more and more every time I listen to it, and you'll keep catching new details even on the 10th listen. This album has endless replay value for me, and if I'm ever feeling down or in the type of mood where I just want to turn my brain off and go for a ride, this is one of the first vinyls I reach for. Pretty much every beat has been engraved in my head in the best way possible, and whether I'm just looking for some background music or a dense listening experience that's holding 100% of my attention, it works either way. As top tier as every single track on this masterpiece is, for my three personal favorites, I think I'd have to pick Working on It, Stop, and Don't Cry, with Lightworks and Geek Down as honorable mentions. Thank you for watching my 9th video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know what your favorite beats are from this game-changing project. Next up, I'm going to do another Southern classic from the 90s, and then, as I mentioned before, after that we're going to move on to 10 modern albums that are mostly a little more underground, so be sure to tune in if you want to see what those are. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.